Y'all ain't even gonna need to worry about liking this video because it's gonna be a good one. So go ahead and like it. Comment if you resonate with this because I have a feeling many are gonna be resonating with this topic, which is a Semen Retention Sunday episode here on this channel. You are showing them that there's no excuses. You see, people are going to reveal their true colors when you are on semen retention because you are naturally going to bring out who they really are and what they're really about because you're retaining your essence, and the people all around you are going to naturally be inclined to be more themselves. Some might be a little bit more relaxed around you. Some might actually show that even though they're trying to play nice, you can get the energy and get the sense that they hate your freaking guts. Like, have you guys ever seen or heard that around these kinds of people where you're talking to somebody and you can clearly see that they are putting on this facade, this fakeness, where they're trying to show you love, but deep down they really just cannot stand to see you doing well despite all of your circumstances. That's really what a lot of these haters are like. And there's going to be a lot of haters when you're on semen retention. And even if you bring it up to people, they're not going to understand a lot. I don't really bring that up in conversation unless I get the energy from this person that they would probably benefit from it. And I have brought it up, and I'm not afraid to talk about this in public or anything like that. If it's not like openly out and about, I'm not just going to say like, hey, have you ever heard of semen retention? Because that's not what it's about. But if I'm talking to a guy in the community and he starts telling me about his life, or we start to have any kind of conversation, which doesn't really happen often, but if it does, I will bring up if he does semen retention or not, and how part of what I do is helping people grow closer to God and advocating against watching porn or playing with yourself, etc. And if he's not in a relationship as well. And usually they'll say something like, well, I've never actually heard of that. Like, why? Are there any benefits? What are the benefits? I thought I had to play with myself at least once or twice a month just to keep the fluids going and keep the things going and the engines moving, right? I said, no, that's not what it is at all. And I'll explain to this person that I've actually been myself on this journey for over 2 years now, and or whatever the time frame was at the time. I have been on this journey since May of 2022 now, and I couldn't be more happy with my life, and I couldn't be more purified with the way things are going, even though that there are not things that are completely in line right now in my life. I know that God has my back. I know that God is working through me and with me, and that even though there are a lot of things that are going on in the world, that I am doing what is necessary to bring people closer to God and to spread the gospel, really, the good news. That's what the gospel is, with spirit and truth. And that is ultimately what this journey with semen retention is about. And, this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, is that we live in a society that is basically a highly sophisticated zoo. And people think that they live in civilization, but it's really not. If you take a look around and look at the people, many of these people out here are living a routine-based life that does not improve their well-being. There's nothing wrong with routine. In fact, I would encourage routine of some kind, but right now my routine is no routine. And so I'm a man of unpredictability at this point, and that's really just part of who I am as well. Part of who I am and what I am is being completely flexible and disciplined at the same time. And that's one of the benefits of semen retention. That's one of the greatest things I've learned about it, is not only will it help me improve my discipline with my sexuality. It'll also help me improve my discipline in all areas of life. And when I have to stand on my principles, I do stand on my principles, and I'm not afraid to do so. I'm not scared about the potential consequences, because I know that to fear God and to have a reverence toward God is more important than my fear of what might happen if I don't say what needs to be said, or if I don't do what needs to be done. And it's about doing the right thing. It's about doing what is necessary for you and the people around you to elevate. And if you're not elevating, then by definition, you're almost regressing. So people are going to expose themselves around you, and you're going to expose them just by being who you are. And they may not understand it, they may not get it or where you're coming from, but the most valuable thing that you can do in your life when you're on this journey is to be closer to God and to act in accordance to His will. Because if you are doing what needs to be done, you're following the laws, statutes, and commandments, things are going to align for you. Like they just are. And you have to have faith in that. You have to believe with your whole heart that that's actually going to be what happens, because you're not deceived. You're not somebody that is, even though there's so many people in the world that are takers and users, and it's like, you know that they're just taking and using, but that's not your prerogative. That's not your goal. Your goal is to actually improve not only your life, but the people around you that actually want to improve their life as well. And this is why it's so important to be involved in a community of some kind. And this is one of the reasons why we have the Regal Change Academy on school. For more information, you can look in the description box below. We do have a semen retention course available for you. And these courses in that community allow you to have a guidance-based course in which you can elevate yourself using the tools and the instructions that are in there, so that you can actually live the life that you want, that you can actually live a life that you're proud of without being prideful. And there is a difference between being prideful and being proud of yourself. Whenever you are proud of yourself, though, I would offer a recommendation to take a step back and to really look at your life and to really look at where it is that you are lacking. It's not necessarily that you can't be proud of your achievement or your accomplishment, but okay, well, what's next? That's the mentality that you need to have. It's a mindset. It's not necessarily about doing what you want to do all the time, or accomplishing this and doing that and accomplishing that and saying this to say that. It's not what it's about. What it's about is revitalizing your life to ensure that you're going to grow in the most necessary forms possible to increase the probability of enduring and sustaining success and having a family legacy down the line. If you're putting family legacy above family leisure, this is something that I've talked a lot about on this channel, but if you're doing that, you are succeeding as far as I'm concerned, because you are completely aware of what is necessary for the longevity of your bloodline, and you're doing what you do not just because you want to have a good time. It's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with that, but you're not doing it just for the sake of leisure. You're doing it for the sake of creating something that means something. And this is not to say that you're necessarily a co-creator with God, but you are, in fact, a co-creator with God. It's not like it's more like God's hands. Everything that happens in your life has to go through God's hands if you are actually following God, if you are actually on the righteous path. And if you're not doing that, then that's where things are going to be forced, or they're going to be rigid in your life. And anything that is forced or rigid is likely going to have an impact in which is not going to be proficient for the long term. But when force is necessary, then you've got to be forceful. And it's not necessarily that you're trying to be aggressive, but that is going to be another effect of being on semen retention. Because when you're on semen retention, there's just something profoundly magical that happens, and not magical in the sense of like witchcraft, but just there's a numinous quality about semen retention in which you just naturally grow closer to who you are, what you're about, and you almost get placed on a path in which you know you have to walk, and God is encouraging you to walk on this path. And it's like a track. It becomes a track that you don't really get to sway off of. It's like a train track. The train just goes on the track, and if it's on the track and there's a track before the train's going to stay on the track. So whatever happens is if you do something wrong, usually what that means is that you almost like went in front of the train and took out pieces of the track, and then that's when you go off track, quote unquote. But if you're on that train track and you're doing everything necessary, you did everything right, you did everything to the best of your ability, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you don't need to lose your dignity. You don't need to lose your integrity. In fact, you're rising in integrity, you're rising in prosperity, and you're doing better things, and you're going on to better lives, like better lifestyles. And it's not just about like a luxurious lifestyle. That's not exactly what I mean, even though there's nothing wrong with living luxuriously, but that's the goal. And if you're responsible and you're disciplined, it's going to make everything much more better in the long term. But these people will expose themselves, and you're showing these people that it doesn't really matter who you are, what you're about, because if you can get this right, everybody that maybe isn't watching the video, maybe just listening to it, I'm pointing to my chest, my heart. If you can get this right, if you can understand this for yourself, then you've understood life in many situations. Life is not always going to be like, there's not always a tomorrow, right? There's not always a tomorrow. It really is always now. Now is the only time that really matters. And of course, you have to be practical in some ways, like, oh yeah, there's tomorrow, next week, oh, we're going to be there at this day at this time. But that's the practicality, because we can only experience time linearly, right? But if we can think about it as the omnipresence of God meaning there is only now. Time is always now. This is what Jesus means when he says that he's the life and the resurrection. There is always now. Whoever believes in Jesus will have enduring and everlasting life. And it's because Jesus has, he created himself to be a dismantling subject of death, because death is now an illusion. He is disillusioned by death. That's why he's the life and the resurrection. And when you're on semen retention as a man, I swear there are some times where I just feel as if I am channeling the Spirit of Christ so much that it's so profound, and it's so much a blessing to be a part of, because I would rather increase in wisdom than any kind of material thing any day. And it's not to say that there are not values, or it's not that materialism is not valuable, because it can be, and living luxuriously, again, is not a bad thing. But wisdom is always going to be more important than those things. But if you can get both, that's what's going to be awesome. Like, good for you if you can do both. Great. Fantastic. I encourage that. So with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time, peace be with you.